I'll check to see if there's something I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't know why YouTube acts like you ask them to tell you, notify you of the stuff, and then they don't notify you.
Gonna drink love more than you think.
I had to take this trophy. I want the best person trophy. But I know in order for me to get into heaven, I'm not gonna get in there. Well, come on in heaven. You had 20 hit records. That don't mean nothing, and that's what this world is for. They're gonna say, "Oh, come on in heaven. You was a nice person."
I love you.
I love you so much.
I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hi, Daddy.
All right, people, we have watched this video of Mr. Combs. I previewed it last night. Watched it again today. And we have joining us on the stage Miss Lori Victoria Burke.
How are you doing?
I am fine. I flubbed all over your name.
All right.
Y'all have to excuse me. My allergies are kicking in really, really bad. It messes with my skin. It messes with this eye. And I don't know. It feels like my tongue swells up too, but I don't know. But how are you today?
I'm doing fine. I got a lot of friends that are dealing with allergies, so that's not uncommon. This time of year is really, really bad for allergies. Wow, you've been on a while. What is taking so long? What's going on? I've been on so many phone calls and Zooms this morning unrelated to this, and I have no idea where this is right now. Like, what's going
So
on?
we had the prosecutor come in, and they went over their recommendations for his sentencing, and they recommended 135 months. They talked about they have these enhancements that they can put on here. They were able to get the enhancement that not only was Cassie and Jane a victim, that the 4 to 5 escorts were considered as victim as well. The Diddy's team wanted 14 months, and the judge was like, I'm going to go with what the probation services report is, and they're looking at 70 to 87 months, which is like a little bit of 5 or 6 years. The prosecution wants about 11 years. They're looking at about 5 or 6 years. Diddy can give it up about the 14 months. And I think everybody in the courtrooms, flabbers were gasted when the prosecution mentioned that Diddy has planned engagements for next week. And if you go back through the letters of recommendation that he was sent, there's one pastor in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That pastor also attached all the engagements that Diddy was supposed to be going to.
Wow.
They
Wow.
next week, and so the prosecution used that to say Diddy is not remorseful. He thinks this is a joke. He's not. He's not. He says he's remorseful. He's had this film that he's done. His 4-page letter to the judge. We just heard that his children have come up and beseeched the judge not to let their father out. Mia, who was one of the people that testified, she had mentioned to the prosecution that she wanted to testify. The prosecution was going to let her do her witness impact statement. The defense was like, she was part of the stuff that I wasn't convicted of. So I don't feel, why does she need to come to court? And
Right.
apparently, from all of that back and forth, Mia has decided not to. The prosecution is saying that the defense bullied her. It's a whole lot of stuff. So we're listening now to because there's not going to be anybody coming in for victim impact statement. Cassie's not coming. They just all wrote letters. Cassie wrote a letter. Her parents wrote a letter. Mia wrote a letter. Deontay Nash, who was the stylist who saw Cassie pushed into the bedpost, is how she split her head. And then we had Capricorn Clark write a letter.
Wow.
The the person, Gina, you remember Gina, everybody couldn't figure out where Gina was.
Hmm.
Gina wrote a letter on behalf of Diddy because she said that she didn't feel like she was a victim and that the prosecution was trying to make her feel like a victim when she said that she wasn't a victim. So
Yeah.
she's in the courtroom as we speak. I don't think that she is going to speak, but Cassie is not in the courtroom and Jane is not in the courtroom. So this is where we are right now. We're just updating. I'm going through CNN, the New York Times, Inner City Press, and Law and Crime
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on with all of this stuff. So that's where we are right now. So they
Mm.
just see the video. Let me update. What is your thoughts?
Inner City Press has been amazing on this entire trial. I'm surprised that there aren't more people present in the courtroom, even Cassie. I'm surprised there wasn't some victim impact statements that are live victim impact statements, not just written. I'm surprised at that. I'm also a little surprised that 11 years. I think that can't not for what he was convicted for. I'd be surprised if that was the average sentence for what he was convicted for. So, as is the case in other cases we've seen, it could be obviously, this is in the public eye. Everybody knows the full details of the case, even the things that he wasn't convicted for. And so, what I think the prosecution may be doing with that is, I guess, trying to recover, frankly, some of the embarrassment that
Hmm.
happened when we heard the verdict, because I think people were expecting more of a verdict than we actually saw, and convictions on more things than we actually saw, and some open questions there about what was brought in terms of the charges. But 11 years seems excessive. 4 or 5 years seems very possible. That seems extremely possible. But it would be interesting to see what the average sentencing is for these types of crimes. So for what he was convicted for, not for
Well,
what
they
they
have
would.
a let me just show you, and
Hmm.
Flavio sent this, but this is their sentencing table.
Hmm.
Um they have the offensive levels, and then they get all of these enhancements. And it seems like the now I don't understand all of the enhancements, but according to the prosecution, they are wanting they want zone D and him be at 135 to 168 months in prison. They want 135 months. And it looks like the prosecution here wants the 70 to 87 months, 27. So the prosecution, because each charge is 10 years. So they're
Hmm.
wanting him to spend at least, one charge in jail. You know what I mean? They
Right.
want him to spend that 10 years, and they've got it at 11.25. So and then
Right.
you got to serve 85% of that with time served, which is the 12 months. So they're looking at 10 years. They want him in jail because they're saying that he's not remorseful enough for them.
Yeah, well, that the thing of scheduling things the week after this, obviously they can throw that out there. One of the interesting factors here is he has been incarcerated this entire time, even though there's been several requests from his team, from the defense team, to have him be out. There was also a question, if you remember, about time served, which, not to say it's been years, but he has been locked up this entire time. It would be interesting to see where they land, where the judge lands. I do think, to be frank, I do think there's some embarrassment in terms of the prosecution. I mean, Diddy being who he is, I do think the guy's a low life, and the stories that came out in this case were terrible. But there's that, and then there's what he was actually convicted of, and it is going to be interesting to see how they square that, because we have seen it before in cases where it was really loud in the media, and then the convictions don't actually show up the way you thought. I mean, I thought he was going to be convicted on more than he was, and I was wrong. And now it becomes a question of whether or not the judge is going to agree with the prosecution, because I do think this was part of this story. I think is an overcharge, particularly given the details that we found out and the involvement of other people who were defined as victims in the beginning of the story, and then we saw the evidence in the case may or may not have been victims. I mean, that's a very,
Well,
very
it
complicated
was
thing.
more so. I think he did not get convicted of the RICO part of the charge,
Right.
and it had
Mhm.
everything to do with they did not believe Jane was trafficked.
Right.
And they had to believe that Jane was trafficked in order for them to go back, because the RICO has like 5 years, but you can do extended if you can show that the behavior hadn't changed. They needed Gina to show that the behavior hadn't changed because of the fact you had that one assistant that talked about he saw Diddy throw apples or something at her, but she wasn't present to kind of put a lynch on there. So there was considered to be a gap. And again, it didn't help Jane when she decided that she was going to go and attend a freak off of another famous rapper and his wife.
No,
So
it didn't. Also, a lot of the text message evidence that came to light on many of the folks that were defined as victims was more revealing than I think anybody thought that it was going to be at the beginning of this. At any rate, it's complicated. We're talking about personal relationships, but we are talking about some instances of abuse that are clearly instances of abuse, whether you're dating somebody or not. Shouldn't be happening, whether you're consenting or not. It's still effing crazy, some of the stuff that Diddy conducted here. So I will be very interested to see where this lands. Probably somewhere in the middle, 4 or 5 years, maybe.
That's what a lot of people, even before Diddy came out with this 14 months, people were thinking that if he does, I thought he was going to do to 24 months, that way you'll get time served and then you'll have like 5 or 6 more months in jail. And then you could probably get out. I know a lot of people were thinking that because that's what the pundits talked about right after the conviction.
Right.
But I had always said the way that prosecutor was were wanting the charges that they wanting. I was looking at the fact, I told people, I said, I think they're going to ask for 11 to 12 years. And they did ask for the 11 to 12 years. I think the judge is going to go by the pre-sentencing report. He may take off maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6 months, but I see him being in jail for. And so if they do him for six years, he already has time credit for 12 months. So that means that he'll have to do a good four and a half, 4 and a quarter, something like that, that he would have to do. So that's where I think the judge is falling in line in. The prosecution is serious about throwing that book at him. The judge is like, they went over 900 cases of the Mann Act, and they were saying that there was not a case like this. And then they were saying that the discrepancy in the sentencing, they had a person who assaulted a minor, and there was something else involved, and he got 18 months. Versus someone who had fentanyl or something was going on and he got 28 months. And they were showing all of these different, they were talking about all of these different cases, and some of the guests that are on Crime and Law and Crime were talking about it too. And so they were just looking like, you've got people, he didn't make any money off of it. They talked about one guy that made $1 million off the transportation and of people for the prostitute too.
Wow.
And they were saying Diddy didn't make any money. He was a voyeur and he was an amateur videographer and all of this other stuff. But I don't think the judge was buying that. And plus, the judge wasn't buying it because of the fact that Diddy's team capitulated that he was violent.
Right. Well, we saw that on the video that CNN dropped, before the whole thing even started. And, once again, it goes to the question that if you would do that, then what else the heck were you doing? And of course tried to hide the video, then lied about the video. The whole thing around the video is hugely problematic for him.
There's no way around it.
There's no way around it. Chiefly the content, but everything else around the video. So, that's all problematic. And I just think, the judge and the prosecution, to some extent in these cases, work in sort of a concert. One way that they can save face, the prosecution, is to get a long sentence, because then they can say, well, look, see, even though we didn't convict on RICO, we do have the fact we have this long sentence that does reflect the seriousness of whatever, but I do think they're going to have to fall within the averages, or they're going to lose on appeal. They're going to lose, they're going to have to explain why it would be that his sentence is longer than everybody else's for the same charges. And that could be problematic.
And let me just explain to you all that they're on a break to 2 p.m. So there's about 30 more minutes in here. in regards to that break. I think that there is two more attorneys on the defense side that are going to speak. I don't know if Gina is going to speak on his behalf. I doubt it. She's just sitting in the courtroom, whatever, according to what the reporters have reported. So I think after all of this, I think the judge is going to make his ruling. I think because I don't know what else they can put forth.
Yeah,
Maybe the kids crying will, like I said, will get him 10 months off or such like that. But I don't think that there's much more that they can put off. But
well, I do think I'm certainly we're probably going to hear an argument about the fact that his time served has been, his time incarcerated has been, I think, unusual. I mean, I would have to study, similar cases. But the problem with his case is there are no similar cases. This man is a billionaire who is a wildly successful record producer. He is not just some other case. And so I think what happens certainly in these more high profile cases is you see some unusual anomalies that you typically would not see. One thing that is not an unusual anomaly is longer sentences for Black males in the United States, no matter what the case is. That is a standard. So there's that has to sort of be factored in, even though we know that Diddy is a bad actor in many of these moments. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The testimony was less, I will say this. I thought the testimony was surprisingly, there was some surprises in there with regard to folks that were claiming to be victims before the case. I'll say that. Certainly surprises that could be codified in evidence, meaning text messages. Their involvement in these gatherings that they were having was much more pronounced than I think any one of us would have guessed. But that doesn't erase his behavior. So how they factor that all in is going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. And like I said, I tell anybody when Capricorn Clark got up and talked about the stuff that she talked about she was being blackballed. Hold on, I think my mic is dying.
I can hear you good, well, but
yeah, I see it
needs charging, needs a little bit of charge.
Yeah. All right, I like these because they have backups.
Yeah, those are good. Those are good.
I want that little feathery duster thing on the front of it. But
yeah,
I like these. These keep a charge about maybe like 4 to 6 hours, and I used it last night. And that's so yeah, we're good. I think I'm good now. Y'all can still hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. I believe, like I said, for me, I was looking for Capricorn Clark to get some kind of justice because I believe he blackballed her. I believe that she could, and she was one of his most prevalent assistants, because I remember I didn't know what her name is. I knew that she had a different type of name, and I said I remember her on television. Something about, what was it, being Diddy's assistant, and how she was talking and all the stuff that she had to do. And I just assumed, when she wasn't there anymore, I just assumed that she went on to bigger and better things. I thought maybe she was in an executive role, but I didn't realize that he had blackballed her. And I believe that he did. And I don't care what people say. I believe that he did. I believe Capricorn Clark. Hey, Blue. I believe that he blackballed her. Now, she wasn't going to get justice because, again, Jane, they did not believe Jane was trafficked, because you needed both of those charges, and that would have sufficed for the RICO.
Right.
But you only got the transportation charges, but you didn't get the transportation charges plus the trafficking, because if he got both of those, they would have satisfied for the RICO. But that jury, where they may have believed everything else what had happened and what the people said, they didn't believe Jane.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because juries have been, we've seen juries in New York that have really sort of gone with whatever the prosecutors told them to go with. And then we saw this jury. This jury was a very interesting jury. Another moment too of a lot of bats and challenges with regard to the prosecution trying to remove as many Black people from the jury as possible, but they couldn't remove everybody. And so it was a diverse New York jury, and I think an older jury than we typically see. But at any rate, this jury has been I think they've come down right at the spot where most people come down on who are talking about this case incessantly online. It's kind of this mix of common sense, but certainly there's a knowledge that yes, some laws were broken. It's somewhere in the middle there. Interesting jury in this case.
Well, and it also goes because he's older. He's we
Right.
are around that age, so I
Mhm.
think he got a good mix of the jury of his peers.
Right.
But again, like I said, when you listen to what was happening, again, with Cassie and Capricorn Clark information kind of gelling together with
Right.
the and then this is what's surprising too, which I don't understand. There is the chef. Remember they kept talking about this chef. Well, she wrote a letter as well. And I'm like, why would you write this letter and you didn't show up for the court? Because I know Mia was there because she was talking about some of the things in her letter in regards to Mia. And I'm like, you would have been the great linchpin in there to talk about the different things, because she talked about how she had been harmed. She
Right.
talked about how she had been assaulted, because you remember one of the assistants talked about assaulting her, and then come back around that Diddy assaults her.
Right.
We don't get any of that in there, but she does send a impact letter, which I find, I'm like, why do y'all do that?
Well, these cases when you're involving sex and relationships and business and money, it's messy. You're unpacking a lot of messy details that, very rarely have I seen it in any case with this type of subject matter, though it does happen, that one side is completely, completely wrong and the other side is completely, completely right. There's usually some gray areas, although I do think in this case it's an 80-20 or a 70-30, him being wrong, because he's setting up a lot of activity that is abusive, a lot of activity that is, very questionable.
And a little and a little manipulation for all of that
Mhm.
as well.
Absolutely. And of course, he is in the power position where he's got the money. He's making decisions on who will be famous, kind of reminding me a little bit of the Weinstein case, where you have this unique, or Les Moonves at CBS. You have this unique situation where you have this one person that gets to decide if another person is going to be successful. So that gives him a ton of leverage over a lot of these people. And we saw that play out a little bit in this case.
Let me go over here. So here's the letter. It's 7 pages that she wrote. And I'm not
Mhm.
going to read up everything, but I'm just going to highlight some things. She says that my name is Jordan Chachan Atkinson, and she was his personal chef from 2007 to 2010. She says, during my time, I can say that I was extremely overworked, underpaid, mentally abused, exploited, and at one point I was assaulted by Mr. Combs. Not only was I exploited by Combs, I was also exploited by his human resource executive staff. Because again, we heard that from Mia. That could have corroborated the information that Mia was saying, that she would call HR and they would just tell her, oh, well, you just need to call him and apologize. Oh, you would need to call him and do all of this stuff. So she's talking about that she had some stuff with HR. She says this was the most toxic and abusive workplace environment that she had ever been in her entire career, and she's been extremely traumatized by it. She says she was there to witness the start of Sean Combs and Cassie's relationship, because she was the chef. She was the chef on board of the yachts when she saw that Cassie they had taken copious amounts of drugs, and then she saw that they were doing a little kissing and hugging and all this other stuff. But this is how she worded it. She says, when I started working with Sean Combs, him and Cassie were in the grooming phase. That is what it was in my eyes. She was 19, he was 36. There were lavish dinners, shopping sprees, etc., all in the guise of creating a new artist. Sean was working her down like men with money do. I was there in Miami when their working relationship turned romantic. During that weekend, I saw Cassandra provided copious, that's the word that's killing me, copious amounts of drugs. I encountered her extremely high out of her mind, and I offered her food to help bring her down. I witnessed Sean cursing his assistant David James out for not having condoms on the yacht. I remember thinking it was crazy and gross. Like, why is he so mad about condoms not being on the yacht? It's never that serious. Well, of course we know why he was upset and is mad, because he had Cassie right where according to, if we take what she says as a fact, he had Cassie where he wanted her, and he was ready to do what he needed to do, but he didn't have no condoms at the time, because I don't even think that she had broken up with the producer boyfriend she had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but anyway.
Well, like I said, it's messy, right? I mean, it is messy. I mean, a lot of this is really the reflection of the life of a lot of rock musicians, whether they be rock, R&B, or any other genre. I mean, this is a lifestyle that is not unfamiliar. If you read any of the books on rock and roll and the entertainment business, it's not to say, it's not to excuse anybody's behavior, but it's not an unfamiliar territory, this subject matter. And we put it in a courtroom and have to prove all of this out some years later. It gets very difficult to do. So it is interesting to see, though, her impact statement. I mean, it's interesting to see some of these statements filed, no doubt about it.
Yeah. I'm just going to read just a little bit more. She talks about he wouldn't let any of us sleep. Mia said that, let alone get any breaks. I was working 17 to 21 hour days, 7 days a week. I worked almost 2.3 months straight until I had my first day off. He screamed and cursed at me when he saw me having casual conversation with Cassie. He said I wasn't supposed to be talking to her if it wasn't about food. She mentioned on here too, one of the things that stuck out to me, because again, we're not going to read all of this, but one of the things that stuck out to me is that she mentioned about the food. He would have the people working there at the whatever, particularly the mansion in Miami. They would be working 7 days straight, and he would say they can't eat until I tell them they can eat. And so she was saying that they were working 17 hours and they hadn't had any, they hadn't had any food. They may have had some coffee. And he was like telling them that they couldn't eat. So she would sneak to make everybody some food. And then when he found out, this is where she got assaulted. When he found out that she was making food, he confronted her. She said he physically assaulted her. And she said that she talked with the assistant named Amanda. And Amanda told her to go ahead and fix some food. And he put his hands on Amanda, that she says. But I'm just saying, I find it interesting. Like you said, it is messy, and the prosecution redacted a lot of little things like that. But I just find it interesting that I don't know, maybe because I watch, you know how you watch television and you think that they have the power to make somebody to come to court, but it just looks like, she just had all this information, but they didn't capitalize on it. And I don't know why.
Yeah, they probably didn't want to unpack another. I thought they had enough. I think in their mind, the prosecution felt like they had enough on who they had out there. They probably felt like, look, we don't need to add every single story of every single event and the yacht and this and that. Think about all the parties that somebody like Sean Combs has had over the years, all of the gatherings, all of the this, all of that, and all of the people who I'm sure approached the prosecution with various stories. So in these cases, in these celebrity cases, what we find is that some of these stories are nonsense. I mean, some of these stories are completely legit, and then some of these stories are complete nonsense. So I'm sure they probably had to draw a demarcation point at some point of who they were going to listen to and who they weren't. But I felt like what they brought into that courtroom in their mind should have been enough. Like they felt like they had enough, and they probably didn't want to add every story that was brought to them, if I had to guess.
Probably so, but they realized that they actually realized a little too late that they actually needed a little bit more because they like I said, they hedged their bets on Jane. Right. And I don't know if the jury believed Mia or not, because in one of those impact statements, somebody mentioned like he was sleeping with Cassie's friend. Mm-hmm. And I was like, was it that friend that she fell out with, or was it Mia? You know what I'm saying? Because Mia had set it up that she was Cassie's friend, which was interesting.
Yeah,
this is ancillary. This is
Right.
ancillary because Tina brought this up last night. We did a live late last night,
Mm-hmm.
but she brought up something that I did not recognize. And Blue, if you're still here, let me know. And then let me know what you think about that. I'd be would love in the men that are here in the chat. I would love a male perspective on this. She brought up the fact that you noticed that every woman that Diddy was with or had babies by, those women were with men who he had issues with. So you have the Kim Porter, she was with Albie Shore. You have Cassie, and she was with the Ryan Leslie guy. Then you have Gina, who they say she was with Chris Brown. You know, him and Chris Brown fell out.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Jane, who they say is 50 Cent's baby mama. Now I don't know about Young Miami or the woman who he has the 2-year-old with. I'm not sure about that, but I found that to be quite interesting. As far as me, when I heard that, I thought about character. He is a little manipulative and diabolical. Did he think that he was? And that made me think about Drake. How there are some men that try to get to other men through their women. And that's what made me think it's ancillary to the whole thing. But I just found that to be interesting. And I found it interesting how he was treating each one of these women. Now, I don't know about how you treated all the women, but the rumors that for the women that they were talking about, it wasn't too good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's keep it 100. The women that they are that are in the circles of the music business are unlikely to be, doctors, lawyers, and people who are sitting around in occupations where they're going to be extremely picky about who they're with. If you're the person on Diddy's yacht out in the middle of the ocean contemplating whether enough condoms are around, your life choices are probably not all that diverse. I'll just say that. Okay, to just keep it real. I mean, I'm not saying that these women are all floozies or anything like that, but it does strike me in these cases that there's a pattern of a certain type that keeps coming up in these stories. They're not all like that, and this is not me saying they're all gold diggers, and if they're all gold diggers, they deserve to be abused. No, they don't. They don't deserve to be abused no matter who they are. But it is interesting, some of the women who are in these stories, it's just the same. It's like the same type of person over and over and over again. Now, that could also be the predatory spirit within the guys that are involved, looking for women who don't have a lot of life choices and leveraging them into certain positions for sex and everything else. Could be that. But it is interesting when you look at some of these women are extremely talented. Maybe they didn't know that, but they can sing, they can do stuff. And some of these people, to me, they didn't need him. They really just didn't need him.
You think about all of them, Cassie, for whatever you think about her music. I mean, she still was like a threat in terms of she had, she was lackluster in her music. She was acting and she was modeling. So there was an ability for her to, matriculate through the music business. You got Jane. She's a social media influencer. She went from saying that she was making about $150,000 to $160,000 a year from just doing Instagram and endorsement, to her not even making 10% of that once she got with Diddy. Now, and Diddy it wasn't like he was paying her a whole for what she put out. I don't see the payment coming back in. And I know that sounds crass, but I just don't see what, for what she put out that she got the reward that she was looking for. I think like her and Cassie, they all wanted to be the main woman. They didn't really care that he was dating other women, but they were all jockeying for being the main woman. And I think that's when Jane kind of realized, or she's doing too much for Diddy, and realizing that her status wasn't going to change. Just like Cassie had to realize that her status wasn't going to change. She was just,
Yeah, I just think it's really sad to contemplate that for a lot of these women, their entire personal personal value is wrapped up in which entertainer I can sleep with or get with or be partnered with, as opposed to, and there were several women in this story, I think that certainly you could say this about, as opposed to just leveraging their talent away from this guy. He wasn't the only music producer around. And a lot of times talent does trump everything, but it is
Right.
sort of a casting couch element to these stories that is unfortunate, that is built into, of course, our culture of misogyny and patriarchy that goes on for decades and centuries. But I do think, though, that we do live in a time of opportunity as never before seen when it comes to people who are talented. And the needing of the record company, the needing of the record deal is a lot less than it was 20 and 30 years ago.
Right. Blue, Gina's in the courtroom right now. She's supporting Diddy right now. She says that she wasn't trafficked and that she felt like the prosecutors were trying to make her say something that she in her heart of hearts didn't feel. Whew. Sorry about that, y'all. It feels like grit and a heavy object in my eye.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, allergies are a pain in the neck.
They are, and that's the part. It's more aggravating because I've got an eye that's running, and then I have my throat feels a little strange. Not like I got any, It just feels like there's this tickling, and it's like back in the back of my throat, like on my tongue somewhere. So it's
Mhm.
making my tongue feel a little, that little tingly feeling when something goes numb.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pain in the neck.
Yeah, and it's just irritating. It's not getting, it's not swelling up or doing anything like that. It's just this irritating in my thing. You run off and probably tracks that way. But those women go from person to person. They all have been with the five or yeah, exactly. And did you hear what I said earlier about what Tina had enlightened me on last night? That all of these women have been people that Diddy has fallen out uh with their former exes or stuff like that. And the way Jane was describing it, I was like, yeah, he knew who you were a mile away. Because she said that he was dating one of her friends and then he just made a beeline towards her. I'm willing to bet you he knew who she was before she thought he knew who she was. Anyway, let's see where we are at time. So they're going to come back in about 10 minutes. So let me tell y'all what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in here and we're still going to be online. I'm not doing that, but y'all are going to give me a few minutes so that I can uh, go look at this eye to make sure things are not doing what it needs to do. So we will be here. Victor, do you want to talk, or do you want me to put up the overlay? And because I think it's about 2 minutes or so like that,
Yeah,
and then
you can
we'll.
put up the overlay. That's fine. I'll take a walk for a second. A short walk.
All right. So we'll be back in about 3 to 5 minutes, y'all. All right. All right. We are back. Let me see where we are at. Because that's about 5 more minutes. So let's listen to what's going on CNN. We'll share. Oh, I am sharing that screen.
Handed down. New this morning, we're getting a look at the pre-produced video his attorneys plan to show, highlighting the positive contributions they say he has made in his life. We're also getting a preview of what he might say in a letter to the judge pleading for mercy, writing, among other things, that he's been, quote, humbled and broken to his core. And we should know that Combs was acquitted on the most serious charges in this case. Let's get right to CNN's Kara Scannell outside the courthouse this morning. A big day for Sean Combs, Kara.
Good morning, John. It is the day that Sean Combs will learn his fate, if he will spend years in prison or if he could be released in just a matter of months. This all comes down in just a few hours from now. And as you said, in the last 24 hours, he has made a push to try to present a softer side to him, the side of a father, with that pre-produced video that was submitted to the court and that he wants to play today, as well as a letter. He's trying to counter the image that the prosecution has that he is a violent man and a man that should be punished and spend years in prison. Combs writing a letter to the judge, 3.5 pages. And in that letter, he apologized for his conduct. It's the first time he has done so since he's been charged in this case and throughout the trial. He wrote, "I want to apologize and say how sincerely sorry I am for all of the hurt and pain that I've caused others by my conduct. I take full responsibility and accountability for my past wrongs." He also addressed what has been at the heart of this case and the heart of the government's push for him to serve years in prison, and that is the physical violence that came out at this trial. That video at the Intercontinental Hotel where Combs is seen punching, kicking, and dragging his girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. That was a key part of the case, paid repeatedly during the trial. So Combs addressed that, apologizing to Ventura. He said to the judge, "The scene and images of me assaulting Cassie play over and over in my head daily. I'm sorry for that and always will be. My domestic violence will always be a heavy burden that I will have to forever carry." Now, the prosecution will address the judge today, and they are asking the judge to sentence Combs to more than 11 years in prison. A key piece of this, they say he is a violent man and that he has shown zero sorry. He's not shown that he is making any sort of amends in this case. And they say that he needs to be punished for this. Now, his team, and as part of that, the government says that they are going to call one of the victims who testified at the case. She was a former employee of Combs, Mia. She alleged that Combs had physically assaulted her and sexually assaulted her. She's not part of the prostitution-related charges that he was convicted of, but the judge is allowing her to speak to the court. That is supposed to last about 5 minutes. And we're not expecting to hear from Ventura or the woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane, who was also part of that sex trafficking charge of which Combs was acquitted. We're not expecting them to be here today. So it will be the prosecution speaking and Mia speaking for about 5 minutes. Then Combs is expected to address the court himself. We already have a sense of what he's going to say, but it's expected to be a packed courtroom with his family and friends there as they've been throughout the trial. And then he will learn whether he is going to face years in prison or if he will get out in what he is hoping for, a 14-month sentence, essentially time served. John?
It will all unfold shortly this morning. Kara Scannell, great to have you there. Thank you very much.
So, again, what we expected this afternoon, we're expecting 2 more of Diddy's lawyers, and it looks like we're going to be hearing from Diddy himself. So, again, I hate that there is not at least audio in these federal courthouses. So we're going to have to depend on the news reporting from the inside from different people. Let me go over here to the New York Times. They have 4 new updates. Let's see. So we have 3 more defense lawyers and Mr. Combs himself. I'm not sure why each one of these lawyers need to come up and speak. Do you have anything to that, Lauren? I'm not sure why.
No, but I will say, I mean, his legal team has been quite good, so it really doesn't matter. I mean, it would be interesting to see what they say up there individually. They're probably, I guess, I don't want to say trying to drag it out because that's not really the right way to say it. I think it's probably just more that they have the team of three is probably got a plan, of course, as to what each lawyer wants to say out there. And it is interesting that they're all speaking, but again, they probably just broke it up into thirds as to what the message was going to
Well,
be. I'm
I
assuming it's Xavier Donaldson and Mark Agnafino and Tenny Garagos, right? So Tenny Garagos would probably be the most interesting because she's the female on the team. But I don't know. What are you going to say?
Well, they had Westmoreland. She was I guess she was supposed to be the face of the black community because she was up there crying too
Mhm.
about all his philanthropic work and what
Yeah.
the community, what he means to the community and all of these different things. And I think the first lawyer, Brian Steele, was just arguing basically the nuts and bolts of the case, like, hey, we've looked through these different cases under RICO, and they've only sentenced people to this amount of time. He's remorseful, he's that. And then you get the children up there, and so they're asking the judge not to send their father away for a very long time. So I guess Garagos and Donaldson, I, I I guess they're gonna bring it home before Diddy gets up.
Yeah, right. I mean, Garagos, I'd really love to hear that speech because, of the three, that would probably be the most interesting. But you never know. I mean, the team has done a lot better than I thought they would. I mean, everybody thought this
Mm.
case was dead in the water. They called this case was a slam dunk, R. Kelly style slam dunk when this thing started. Because when that CNN video dropped, everybody thought this was game over. So I think his defense team has been quite effective. I mean, I'm surprised that they got him into this position. It was seen as a win for him when the verdict came down. And so let's see what they can pull off today. If anything, this is a much harder to me. This is a much harder hurdle to jump because we're getting into subjective decision making and subjective reasoning that you just never know where that's going to end up.
Oh yes, and even when you talk about the slam dunk, because everyone's perception when he got arrested, uh, with the lawsuits that came out, everybody's perception was, he was plucking people out of the thing and going to do it, and they was in this drug fueled stupor that they couldn't consent and they couldn't do anything. But then we find out that this has everything to do just with the women that he's romantically involved in. That puts a whole spin on it, and then he's romantically involved with them, and then they're paying for sex with prostitutes.
Yeah,
They probably
I mean,
they probably would have done better by putting one of them on the payroll, whichever the one that they love the best, put them on payroll, and then say that they are the sex therapists, because some sex therapists, they engage in certain types of touchy feely stuff like that with
mhm.
with their clients.
Yeah,
And not
I
not
would.
making light of it. I'm not making light of it, y'all. I
Mhm.
know when I say these things, but I'm just saying, if you look at all the stuff that they're doing, but again, there's a degradation kink in there somewhere that
Mhm.
that he enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that some of the evidence that was confirmed at trial was just so stupid and ridiculous and abusive and crazy. And, let's face it, Sean Combs is a lowlife. Sean Combs is an ass. I mean, he's just somebody that really, for some reason, enjoys humiliation and craziness. The question, of course, became during the trial, is that unlawful? And particularly, is that unlawful when you have individuals involved and there's reasonable proof of consent, which I think there was. These are not underage folks like in the R. Kelly situation.
Right.
So it is a very sad situation, for Sean Combs, that for some reason he felt like he needed to conduct his business in this way. Um, I remain, I just sort of there's just certain truisms, though, whether it's Sean Combs or anybody else, when it comes to the sentencings of Black males in our society, and when it comes to this type of case, is a high-profile case involving a billionaire African American, you're going to probably get some weird anomalies that you've never seen in any other case. And of course, what comes to mind is the dude of Abercrombie and Fitch, who's walked now because, oh, I'm pleading insanity. You know, it's always different somehow. You look at these cases, and that difference.
Well, of course, because even when you listen to how they're talk, you know, you'll pick that up, and I think for my non-Black folks that are watching, because you know we are very keen about clicking the clues. It's even how they're talking. They're like, oh, even you see the video, because if this would have been the same video and he would have been Scott Combs from Midwest Wisconsin, the video alone, if he was to show, and even if he had pruned his family from the timeline, the video alone would have pulled on everybody's quote unquote heartstrings. But even though you know that this man has pruned, we've got some kind of it's really some kind of psychosis going on. That we know people will do these things, but then yet we're like, well, we ought to, feel bad about it. We don't, I don't understand what y'all want. And, he's such a good man. And, it's like, well, that's your definition, because people can put on fronts. Like he, in his business, in his philanthropic endeavors, charming, charismatic, that's what he needed to be. But then when you go home, there's this dark element, that there is this degradation kink that you need to have, you have to see with the people that you're involved with. And then with that other layer, because again, this is messy Pam, that other layer of knowing that all these women, and particularly the women that you've degraded, it was in direct correlation with the people who they had been involved with before they were involved with you.
Yeah, that is a very unusual thing. But, it's a lot of times in a clique of people, particularly in the entertainment business, where that clique is not a ton of people. It is a rarefied space. You see this in politics as well. The same people know the same people are hanging out in the same spaces with those people. So a little of that doesn't really completely shock me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that, oh, he's dating the girlfriend of some other superstar walking around.
Right.
Doesn't really shock me. But, I do think it's just, you're talking about people with millions and billions of dollars and yachts and too much time on their hands and talent and women around and people who want to get in their space. And I think when you put all that together, it can get very hard to unpack that. Right. There's certain things that aren't hard to unpack. I think abuse is not hard to unpack. Abuse is abuse, no matter what we're talking about. But there are certain elements of this that are a little bit more complicated, particularly the elements of women who come at these guys all the time. It's something that we don't like talking about a lot. The Me Too movement doesn't like talking about it a lot. But the fact is that in a lot of these stories, when you start reading the cases and getting into the details, whether it's a bad actor or a good actor or whatever else, a lot of these guys have an unusual amount of women coming at them wanting things. Okay. Right. So, that is not the normal posture of most guys, so that creates a whole thing within itself, a whole world that is hard to unpack in a courtroom within itself. But
right.
It doesn't excuse the abuse, doesn't excuse some of the stupid, crazy nonsense that was found out about in this case that I think Sean Combs should be extremely embarrassed by. I'm not a big fan of these cases because what I find is it's just a parade of what I would call historic stereotyping of Black men in a way that you don't see with white men in the same types of cases. And the Abercrombie and Fitch case wasn't the only one, but that was a perfect example of how, oh, what a coincidence. That happens not to ever find a courtroom and happens not to ever be adjudicated, and we'll never know the details, and it's all hidden, and oh, he's pleading insanity, But this, we knew every detail of everything that Sean Combs is doing for the last, decade. So I'm just a little bit suspicious when I see certain stars come into alignment, because they seem to only come into alignment for African Americans in the justice system. So it's complicated, but it's in some ways not complicated. In other cases, it is.
Right. What do you think? What is your opinion or your commentary on the folks that were saying that um, he wasn't the DV happened so far back that they couldn't convict him. They couldn't bring a charge up or to convict him of that. So why did they make that so prevalent and show the video so often in court? What was the point of that when they knew that they were never going to bring that charge up? What would you say about that?
Well, everybody knows what the point of that is. It's to paint a picture of his character, which was not hard to do when you saw such a crazy video, violent video of you kicking your so-called this person that you call your girlfriend, and you're kicking her on the ground and throwing her to the ground. I mean, it's just so stupid and violent and crazy, you know. And so I'm sure for the prosecution, they wanted to use that as an avatar of his behavior, and he's got to answer for that. I don't particularly like the process in which this came out. It's pretty clear that CNN didn't just get it from the sky. I mean, they got it from somebody who is an actor in this case, but it doesn't change the fact that that's what he did.
Exactly.
You know, that was his behavior. You can't erase it. And he's got to explain that. And it was a shame. I thought that it was outside the statute of limitations, because it would have been, I think, very appropriate to prosecute him for domestic violence and assault, because that was just one of the craziest, stupidest videos we've ever seen anytime, any place. And, you know, just terrible, just absolutely freaking terrible. And like I've said millions of times, I cannot believe Cassie has, this is of course, this is beside the point, but Cassie does have, sorry about that. Cassie does have, Cassie does have, let me find out where that audio is coming from. Sorry about that. Cassie does have a brother, I hear. She has a brother. Wouldn't it be great if that brother had shown up right about the time that had happened, because he needed a beat down for that. He needed absolutely.
Is that feedback coming from you?
That's great. Sorry about that. Sorry, my computer just went crazy. Sorry to the audience for all that craziness. Anyway, he should have gotten beat down for that by some male relative of Cassie Ventura. Okay, that's what I meant to say through all that audio. I mean, it's just so bad that what he did there, so terrible. And then he went and lied about it like a dum-dum. You know, it's just crazy. You know.
Yeah, and like I said, I do believe he thought he had you know, because like I said, what we found out in court was always amazing. So the first security guard takes his iPhone and he records the fight on his iPhone, and then maybe 36 hours later, when he's off work, the hotel manager and one of the other staff members are getting paid $100,000, and he kept 30 and gave his manager 50. And he went out and bought a car at that time or something like that. It's just amazing to me how people and how hotels, you know, have the ability to do that. It should have been somewhere where no regular employee, unless you were security in a building, you know, if you were manning the cameras, but you're in a building so far away that nobody's going to go, you know, get you or see you or anything like that. But just the fact that he could just walk up to these people and start spouting out numbers, and then they spouting out numbers, and then you all are writing promissory notes about this money that you got. I am quite sure that somebody else had that videotape, made copies of that videotape. It's just, you know, that's the thing about with R. Kelly. You know, R. Kelly used to love to film stuff. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, but he could press play on that VHS tape. And they were talking about all the tapes that he had. He used to carry a big duffel bag, because you remember when they had those the little small tapes, and then you had to put it in the VHS adapter in order for you to play that video, you know, to play that video that came out of your camcorder. So all of that to say that you know, R. Kelly went through while he was on trial, he was picking up another 12-year-old.
Right.
And you know, it's just
terrible.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
It's just the best look at the R. Kelly situation certainly came from the Dream Hampton documentary. She really did cover all the bases on that. but it was terrible. It's terrible. It's a terrible story.
Right, right. All right, so I'm just letting y'all know. I've told y'all about my allergies. I told you I took the message, the places that it affects, and my skin is starting to like slightly raise and bump up, and y'all don't
Oh,
get to see that.
oh
And
my God.
so, yeah, it's just my allergies kicking in, and I got to figure out what in my office is triggering it. It may be that fan because as I'm looking at that fan that I'm using, it's got dust on it, so I've turned it off. But
Oh, wow.
and, and
Wow.
that's how I've noticed that it was, and it probably is just spitting all that stuff back into my face. But anyway, I just want to let you all know that I'm not gone. It's just that I've turned my camera off, and I'll cut it back on every now and then so you all can see. Let's see what time it is because they should be coming back at this point or already back.
I'm just going to pick up the DoorDash at the door. I'll be right back.
All right. It seems like all of these lawyers that are getting up because we see that we have Brian Steele that's getting up, and he's like, "I'm honored to practice in this majestic courthouse." Why would you need to say all of that? What is going on? I don't know why they feel the need to say all of that. Let me see what your comments are. Do you have any new comments? Okay. So we're just waiting for more information coming from Inner City Press. While I'm waiting for that, let me see what as serious as criminal sentencing hearing is, there is still an element of theater to the arguments and testimonials. Judge Arun Subrahmanian opened with a number of important rulings, declaring that the federal guidelines call for a sentence of 70 to 87 months, giving that the tearful speeches about Sean Combs' inspirational power, and in this case, a documentary style video with dramatic soundtrack, are not likely to result in anything like the 14-month his lawyer had suggested. They still are not for nothing. Mr. Combs' advocates are making their strongest case for the least amount of prison time that the judge is willing to grant. And it's not over until the sentence comes down. That is so interesting to me. That is so interesting to me. Because like I said, the judge said 70 to 87 months. So he's already stuck in that mode. I don't know. I think maybe it'll shave off 3 to 5 months off of his sentence, but I don't think by much. And I'm talking about the video that he did and the letter that he presented to the judge.
So that video that you aired, they had presented that, the defense?
Yes.
Wow.
It dropped last night along with the letters to the judge from the defense side. It came in probably 30 minutes to an hour after those things were filed.
Wow.
Right. All right, y'all. Let me I know we're still getting in here and I know we're getting to it, but I just need to tell y'all I'm gonna have to turn the stream off because it has gotten the best of me, and
Okay. You've been on for a while. 4 hours is a lot.
Yeah, and the medicine that I'm taking is making me extremely sleepy, and I will fall asleep. I don't have the I don't have the wherewithal to do that. So what I will do, y'all, I'm going to end this live here, but I am going to I'm going to give myself about an hour and a half, and then I will pick back up, and then we'll go over the sentence, whatever that sentence is. Okay. All right, people. please tell a friend. Thank you so much, Lauren, for stopping through. Y'all, please tell a
problem.
friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos, and I will come back probably. What time is it? It's 2:19 there. Y'all give me about an hour and a half, and maybe all of this stuff will the medicine will get a chance to work. I'll take a quick little nap, and then maybe it'll work itself out. So it'll probably be about 3:30, 4 o'clock when I come back on, and it's going to be the same heading. Okay. All right,
Feel
people.
better.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.